I'm Chad Ruthermond.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And welcome to NOCLIP Pocket, Building Better Worlds. Today, we're going to be talking about Signalis, a game that was developed by Rose Engine, published by Humble Games and Playism, and was released in 2022 on Windows, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One.
But first, if you give us a like or a rating, it would be greatly appreciated.
So, Signalis is, and I'm glad that this is the thing that we decided like 4 years ago to always start every episode with. Because it's honestly one of the most incredible things about this game. This is a survival horror game through the lens of the Wayback Machine. It is such a classic survival horror in a way that I don't, even knowing it was a survival horror game going in, I did not know how hard they were going to commit to the like Resident Evil 1 style of survival horror.
Yeah. I know I said this about Shovel Knight, and it's much less true about this game, but it almost kind of felt like a little bit of a Captain Planet of the PlayStation 1. Because it is very Resident Evil 1, but it's also like very Metal Gear.
Yes.
And it's got the first person sections. I don't know what to compare that to, but I'm sure that's taking inspiration from somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like a nice little like pick and choose like some old game inspirations from different places in it. Yeah, but the biggest one is Resident Evil. For sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely does take from all of those things. Like the Metal Gear comparison, I'm surprised to hear you bring up, because I feel like that's very much my like domain most of the time. But it does have like several weirdly Metal Gear elements to it. And it does just sort of like add to everything else.
Yeah, it was literally the first thought I had when I booted it up. And I was like, this like looks like Metal Gear.
When I booted it up, I said, this has... I think when I booted it up, what I said was, Roger Ebert was a fool, because this just looks like art house cinema. Because the game opens with this, like... and this is how all of the cutscenes in the game play out, but, like, you don't know that when you boot the game up. These just, like, quick, like, cutting back and forth, and glitchy screen... and then just like wide shots of the horizons of planets. Like it's very much a tone over substance intro, and a lot of the game kind of also falls into that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if Blade Runner is the best comparison, but like it does kind of have like a vibe that it felt familiar, but I can't put my finger on like what movie it's making me think of.
Yeah, by the time that you get to Rotfront, I think that the game does go sort of full dystopian Blade Runner, like future, not kind of cyberpunk, not really. It doesn't really deal with transhumanism at all. Or does it? I'm not 100% clear on that. We'll talk about the plot in a minute. But to focus on sort of like I guess I want to say the aesthetics is what I'm actually sort of trying to drill down onto, is because like to take from Resident Evil mechanically, it also takes like the aesthetics of survival horror. And I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but like the inventory having the 6 slots and just sort of being like an understood thing, the way that you examine objects and combine them. Like, these are genre trappings, but at the same time, they're done in such a way that is visually what you would expect from a survival horror. And yeah, like, this is one of those games where I was going to be like, oh, you should play this game before you listen so that you don't, like, spoil anything or whatever. But after playing it, I feel like you don't even really need to worry about that. Like, it's so well executed in its presentation that even if you know like everything about this game, you're still going to have a good experience with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
I kind of spliced some thoughts together on that one. Oopsie doopsie. As far as the actual gameplay of Signalis, this is, call me out if I'm being too big on this. I think is the best survival horror game that I've played in like a decade. Like, that is like actual, like what you like real survival horror in terms of like It's not an action game.
Right.
And I feel like they just nailed it so well. But then there's sort of a flip side to it that I want to discuss a little bit later. But, like, did you feel like the survival horror elements of this game, the fact that it really does take from the early days of the genre, whet your whistle in the way that we're always searching for?
I think so. It's like Silent Hill 2 is the only other thing I could think of that is on a similar level. And also taking some inspiration from there with the red computer monitors to save. But yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like it nailed the mechanical elements, but like I personally didn't find it to be that scary.
Okay, that's fair.
And I don't know. Like, I feel like it didn't have any like good horror set pieces. But yeah, like I think I would say probably the best survival horror game to come out in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a minute since we've had something like this. I am interested, like. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about in relation to the fact that it's a survival horror game is that I found the difficulty of the game to be like pretty gentle as far as these go. A lot of times when you make a survival horror game, you bring the difficulty, especially of the combat, up a lot. And the reason for that is to make the player feel tense, like they don't want to lose their progress and all that. And I found this game didn't super have that. Like, it wasn't... I didn't die very many times. I found the puzzles to mostly be pretty manageable. I think I ended up looking up, like, one thing, and it was how the dials worked on the steam, or the heat, the temperature gas puzzle in the incinerator, because I kept turning things and seeing like no difference.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I fundamentally misunderstanding knobs? But aside from that one weird trick that incinerators hate him, like I found that everything was like very manageable, not really a brain teaser. And I wonder, do you think detract from the horror?
Maybe a little. I think the game kind of, and I might be reading into it, but like has like some like storytelling ambitions too. Like it feels like it was maybe an intentional choice to make it a little smoother, so you're not getting stuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it might have, like, the combat, you're right, didn't feel that tense. Yeah, there were some parts later in the game where you had to like, because you had to burn the bodies, you know, Resident Evil 1 style. And so the bodies getting back up could definitely cause like some dread, but I don't know, I didn't ever really find it to be particularly scary, so I guess it does affect it in that way.
Yeah I think it's like, for me anyway, like, because I did find the game at least like reasonably scary. I think the combat in specific, like, when I say the difficulty is gentle, I don't mean that the combat is like easy. It isn't like a skill test, but it is tense when you actually engage in combat.
Yeah, and it's like difficult to just run away.
Right.
Because like the enemies will like kind of like grab and push you and stuff.
Yeah, but I found that it was very viable to just tank a hit and run through things, which is what I ended up doing most of the time. And I think what the game intends for you to do most of the time.
The ammo gets pretty scarce
if
you're killing everything.
Oh, yeah. Like, I thought the game does, and I guess we can talk about this in its own little segment, but like the game's curve as far as difficulty and also just like how they dole out resources made me think this was a very different kind of game at the end of the like first chapter in the medical wing. And then immediately in the second part was just like, I was like, I'm never actually going to have a lot of bullets. Like,
right.
Early on, I was like, oh, I'm conserving too much and should engage in combat more. But then later in the game, they reversed that on me completely. And I think that was their way of amping the difficulty, but it sent me down sort of the wrong path on how I was supposed to approach it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of ping-ponged with it, but I think overall I agree. I think that a lot of it it's not super scary, and the fact that it doesn't have, I think its big horror set piece is the last part of the game before the false ending. Like that segment that I think in the saves are called Nowhere. I think that part is
yeah.
like its set piece, and then everything else. It ending on that, or maybe just making the next part shorter, might have emphasized like how that was supposed to be like an otherworldly space.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of it doesn't feel as frightening because it feels very human, very colonized.
Yeah. And you also, like, there isn't, like, a big mystery to the enemies. Like, it's really just, like, explained to you in copious amounts of documents, like, what exactly all the enemies are and, like, kind of, like, what happened to them.
In the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, so I think maybe, yeah, like, a lack of a mystery makes them not as scary.
Yeah. And, like, yeah, and it isn't like the fact that zombies are zombies is the thing that makes Resident Evil scary, but it's the comparatively very difficult and like even just timing based stuff that makes Resident Evil tense, whereas this game doesn't really have that. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was satisfactorily scary, but not nearly as scary as maybe it could have been. I'm not sure.
I think it had like really good atmosphere, and I think it had a lot of the trappings of horror, but I don't think it was actually scary personally.
Sure. I mean, you are like a big strong man.
That's true. I am a big tough guy.
And I'm like a weak diminutive lady.
He was 19.
He was 19. It's difficult sometimes to really come up with a good joke. Do not joke shame me and my bad jokes. So yeah, I feel like there's still a lot.
Yeah.
that I want to talk about here. The game opens up with you in a ship, a spaceship, and you have to go around and check on a bunch of stuff and look at some things, and it kind of introduces you to some of the puzzle elements, though we'll get into the puzzles in a bit because I have thoughts, but I found the opening to be good at setting a tone. Also the most boring part of the game by like a lot.
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember exactly how long it took, but I thought it built intrigue pretty well, personally.
Yeah.
And then, like, once you, like, leave and go out into the snow, like, I thought it hooked me. I don't really know what it was about it, though.
I mean, I agree with that. I think it does build its tone and its intrigue well. I think that it requires you to do a little bit too much, like, just going to rooms.
Running around.
Yeah, and there's like not really all that much there. It gives you the sort of like find a key card, take it to a place and do a thing that a lot of the game sort of revolves around, but without any sense of like tension or danger. You're just kind of like in a, and this could work for some people and it just didn't for me, where it's like you're in a space that is mysterious to an extent, like you are unfamiliar with it, but it's implied that the character is not. And so you just kind of go from place to place and pick up items, and you kind of get the impression based on what's laid out in front of you that that you're going to find a body in the cryosleep thing. And you don't in the end. Like it opens up, and then you leave into the cold, and then the real game starts after that.
Right.
Like I get that. I think that, I don't know. I'm not even really offering this as a criticism. It's more just saying that the intro does build the tone correctly, but it also sets up the plot to being less literal and objective than you might think that it's going to be. Which, honestly, if you looked at this game at all prior to purchasing it, you probably didn't expect it to have a very straightforward plot.
Yeah.
But, like, reading through the documents and stuff, like, it gives you a literal setup for the things that happen. Like, you're on a spaceship, you're looking for an inhabitable world, you are a replica, which is not a human being, a gestalt. And then I don't know, it builds up to something that then doesn't occur, and then you leave the ship and move on. I think it could have benefited from being slightly shorter, but overall I think I liked it. Yeah. But yeah, then you get to the actual first part of the game, where it introduces you to saving at glowing red computer monitors with boxes that magically teleport your items around. And immediately, if you're me, you know exactly how the game is going to be from that point on. And I found that to be kind of an interesting juxtaposition, because especially when you look at like indie horror games these days, a lot of them tend to be very mechanics light. And this game ends up, we talk many times about how one of the strengths of indie games is their sort of like ability to laser focus on something,
right?
Because they don't have a bunch of people pulling them in a bunch of different directions. And this game actually does mix things well. Like, it's both sort of a tone piece, an art piece, sort of, in terms of its story and plot. It's got all of the Resident Evil survival horror mechanics in it, and it also pulls in like little elements of other things here and there. The Metal Gears, the like first person walking simulator parts,
like Myst,
or
whatever.
Yeah, there's lots of good stuff in there that it's surprising how well it all molds together. I think this is really like something about this game they were able to really extract all of the good stuff out of.
Yeah, they were able to do some effective cherry picking.
Yes. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on like the first the medical bay part of the game?
God, I remember like starting it up and like I knew the game was supposed to be like a classic survival horror, like kind of throwback. But I was just like surprised how much I was enjoying it. Like I just remember like starting it and like being like really happy with it. I feel like. Yeah, like it's and like I remember like the puzzles and stuff. Like I think stuff that we were kind of starting to talk about. Like I remember feeling like the puzzles were like just right and like not too hard. Like progression felt like they were like really nailing that. Like I feel like I'm making observations and like putting the pieces together, but it's like just like simple enough that I'm not hitting any roadblocks and I'm able to like this progression felt like super satisfying, and I think it was like at its strongest at that first part of the game.
Yeah, the game never quite gets away from being like a checklist in terms of like you first explore everything, you identify where you need other items to continue, and then you go get those items from new places that you've explored and bring them to those areas and go through. But it really is just sort of like the layouts of everything that make it feel like harrowing just enough to give you a sense of accomplishment for doing it. This is part of the like slightly easier difficulty of this game. And keep in mind, I think the game forces you to play on like the normal difficulty at the start, and then you can change it later. There's a higher difficulty called survival that I did not play on, that I didn't, as far as I know about until like 2 days ago.
Yeah,
so.
Can't say that I remember.
Yeah,
like,
I don't think it starts you with that option.
I know there's like a secret or a true ending that you can't get on your first playthrough,
right?
Which would seem to support that like maybe you have to play on survival to get it,
right?
And yeah, so
I did look up the secret ending, and I think you can play on any difficulty, but it is like one of them. You know, remember how in like Braid there were those like special pieces that you could get,
the stars,
like where you had to like wait on a cloud for 2 hours and shit.
Yeah.
It's similar in that it requires you to do some like very esoteric horse garbage.
Okay, like you have to open like the game files and like alter shit. This seems like a game that would do that.
It does seem like a game that I think it's just it's sort of like keyed around the radio. You have to like tune to a specific thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and find like spots in the environment to stand, and then you get instructions from the radio to do other things.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which I also want to talk about the radio. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was a very interesting mechanic, one that, as far as like puzzle mechanics go, was one of my favorite things to like bust out, because it gives you that fight. I'm sitting there going like, I'm goddamn Detective Poirot over here, tuning my radio to get the right, and it brings in like the number station thing, which at least among our friend group is like a famously creepy classic thing to bring up.
Yeah, I like how the radio's introduced in like a first-person dream sequence. And it's like tutorialized well. When I first unlocked it, though, like I remember thinking like, "Oh no!" Like I could see them doing some like really obtuse puzzles with this, where I had to like sit there and like go through the radio and find the right station, and I thought it might be like a tedious or like too difficult thing that it would be annoying, but
Yeah.
luckily that's not the case.
Yeah, for the most part, you never have to blindly tune the radio.
Yeah.
It mostly will tell you if you find the right information before doing it, which does save it from being tedious.
Did Oxenfree do the exact same thing, where like how you get the true ending is you have to like do shit with the radio or like different places on the island?
I believe it absolutely did do that. But I'm not 100% sure because I didn't get the secret ending.
Yeah, me neither.
But we also know how I feel about secret endings.
Right.
Well, not secret endings, but endings plural.
Yeah, multiple endings.
Yeah. And we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
When we get to the story. I think to go back to sort of like the minute-to-minute stuff, the gameplay in particular, I guess, okay, I'm kind of dancing around this. I just gotta get right to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
I have very few complaints with this game. One of the big ones is that the flashlight should have just been attached to your body. It should not take up an inventory space. I'm fine with the eyeball camera taking up an inventory space, because I fucking made diagrams and shit on a notebook in crayon because I couldn't find a pencil but could find a crayon. I'm in my 30s, by the way.
Yeah, I've got like a bunch of pictures of stuff that I took.
Yeah, I love and
I did have to I'm sure you have notes for it, but there was like the code where it was in like letters instead of numbers, and you had to like find some kind of
yeah.
Like I did like write that out on like a piece of paper to like make sense of it in my head.
That one, I swear that's on here. Hold on. I don't know.
Unless you have a big brain and were able to do it without paper.
No, I think I just wrote it somewhere else. The thing with the number letter puzzle was that I remember it was just like you just had to find the one letter that wasn't on the keypad.
Yeah.
Right, and then make that map. So I think I just wrote down or typed somewhere like the numbers in order, and then just looked for the fake one and then checked the note. So I don't think I wrote that one down, but I wrote a lot down. I have like 2 full pages of notes on this.
Yeah. It is always fun to play a game that like makes you not just makes you do that, but like makes you want to do it.
Yeah, like 'cause it's not like there's like a level of unfair where it presents you with something and then punishes you really hard if you don't remember it, which would force you to write it down. But like in a game like this where like there are notes you can check, but if you're like thinking ahead, you could like jot down a few notes about something in case you need it later. Like I remember in the last area there's a bit where you like
phases.
Oh, there's the moon.
The tarot cards.
I had to go back for that. We're not going to talk about that. I did have to run back because I forgot to mark one of them down.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't take a picture with the eye because I didn't bring the eye because I had to carry all the tarot cards up there. And so when I like ran down to the thing and I was like, fuck, and had to go back, which was a little bit annoying. But the flashlight, though, I don't think it should be an inventory item, because when you need the flashlight, what happens is you open a door and you go, oh, I need the flashlight. And then you just walk the fuck back, get it, and then come back. Like, it's just an impediment to progress. And I feel like it's just not as interesting as needing to decide if you need to bring, like replace it with something else. I'm fine with that. Like, have there still be the tension in the inventory, and I don't want to take that away from the game. I just think that the flashlight in specific never did anything so mind-blowingly cool that I was like, oh, do I need to bring... You just always need to bring the flashlight for the most part. And I didn't like it just always... This is like such a touchy subject, I guess, because like, yes, there is an argument that if you always bring the flashlight so that you're always prepared, then you're making a sacrifice somewhere else that you can't bring something. Mm-hmm. I just find that dark room isn't that interesting of like a problem to solve.
Yeah. I was kind of torn on it because I usually do like when something makes you make a decision, but I think you are right that it's not a decision. I like once I got the flashlight, I always used the flashlight.
Yeah.
And it would be like, if there was something I wanted to kill with like a stun pod, that would be the thing I would go back for.
Right.
So yeah, like I guess if like most people are gonna play it that way, then you might as well just make it not take up an item slot.
Right. Sort of like how in Psychonauts they should have made levitate not take up a button, like just assign that to a button,
like Silent Hill 2.
Right.
Has the flashlight is just on your
body. That's a better comparison.
Clip to your shirt, yeah.
But it is a thing that you don't talk about it when it is that way. Nobody would notice if the game had started with the idea that the flashlight was on your body. Mm-hmm. But well, who cares? Whatever. It's not even animated on your fucking body. Like it's not. Yeah, it's attached to your chest.
Yeah, like cops use those. Like it's like probably has like a name, like a specific kind of flashlight. But...
Yeah, but nope. gotta take it off, put it in the fucking inventory.
Yeah.
And also it annoyed me because I like to have you. I showed you my end screen. I had only died 2 times. Probably the biggest reason for that is because I just always had the auto injector equipped.
Oh, yeah.
I found that to be... This might also merit a complaint, though I don't really think of it that way. I found having the auto injector equipped to be overpowered because I was always able to run into a room without fear of being bum rushed and murdered, even if I was bleeding out on the ground. Right. I was like, I can always just take a hit and run, even if I don't know it's in an upcoming room.
Yeah, I had like classic video game item scarcity with those, where like I would always put them in the box, be like, I have to save these for when I really need them.
Right. Yeah, I just always had those ones equipped. I used the disposable stun prods a couple of times.
Yeah, they were like first chunk of the game. I was like, these are the best item.
They are really good.
But like you just get way less later, I think is what it is.
Yeah. And then the thermite I usually would use up.
See, I almost never burned the bodies.
There were a few, like if I get to a safe room, you better believe I'm killing everything in the vicinity and burning everything.
I think I burned a grand total of 4 guys.
Oh my god. Did you not use the flare gun either?
No.
Oh man. I burned probably like 35 to 40 guys.
I think it was just like it just seemed so scarce. Yeah, it's like another one of those things where I feel like, because it's a survival horror, I'm like, I really feel like I should say these when I like really need them. Mm-hmm. And
you're never gonna just take them to take up inventory space.
Exactly.
Right?
And I don't want to carry them around.
Yeah.
And
see, I was like that. I don't want to like most of the bodies that I burned were like right near a box.
Yeah.
It's like where I could quickly grab them and then burn it
a couple times. I think in Nowhere. Mm-hmm. There's the save room with the hallway that's got like 3 dudes. Like I think I burned 2 of them and left 1.
Oh yeah, I also burned the ones in the hallway because you get the flare gun like pretty close to them.
Yeah, right near there.
So I ended up using it on them like as like a test of the flare gun, and I didn't realize it says in the description like incinerates enemies, but I was just like, oh, convenient. Like I didn't put together what that meant. I guess.
Yeah. And then I think I burned the 2 guys outside. After you jump down into a pit and you fight like the boss, where you just have to like run away till the girl fixes the rifle.
Yeah.
There's like a room to the right of that, I think, that had 2 guys that I killed as well. So mine were also outside of save rooms.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes sense, you know?
Yeah. But mostly I just found I could just run past things.
Yeah.
In areas that like you go through a lot, you just kind of learn how to avoid them.
That's true. Like there are some, and like there were definitely some areas, The game is broken up into a bunch of different sort of like kinds of room. I don't know how accurate that is to describe, but like there are rooms that are clearly just like places to hold key items and puzzles.
Yeah.
And then rooms that are supposed to be like dangerous to traverse.
Yeah, like hallways
Yeah.
tend to have enemies, and then like there's certain kinds of rooms that will just have items and like a poster and like a document.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was always a big, like, I am neutral to generally positive on like rooms that have a guy in them and you go through it and maybe there's a few items to pick up or whatever. And I like the rooms that are like a surprise. There's like 50 guys in here because it's like a moment of
coming up out of the floor.
Yeah. Or like that room where that you walk in, there's just like the boss from the previous level and like exactly 15
like
other
by
dudes.
The subway terminal or whatever. Yeah. I know exactly the room.
Yep, those are great in like the moment of like,
like
you
an
walk
oh
in
shit. Yeah.
But I really love the rooms that are like a hallway with like 3 people in them because you're always like, I can probably sneak by them, and so you get to sort of like actually like stop and walk and make sure that you're like,
like, are these the guys that you can walk past?
Right.
You know, if you don't move towards them, they won't attack you. Okay, that actually leads me to a good thought. Were you able to differentiate between the enemies? Because I think the game wants you to be able to, because they all have different names, but I found they were pretty hard to tell apart.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Storch.
Well, yeah. There's like one has like a
obvious.
foot for a head or whatever the fuck it was supposed to look like.
And is like very tall.
Yeah.
That one obviously is very easy. But no, it was like
you'll be like shooting a guy, be like, oh, he's got a shield, and I didn't even see it.
Yeah, I think because they always come in like groups. But for the most part, for me, it was like the tall ones, which are fast, the ones that come out of the floor, bosses, and then any enemy that just like had a knife.
Yeah, I think there were a couple different kinds of them.
There were, but I could not differentiate.
Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah.
Well, there's also to me it was hard to even consider this an enemy. This is more of a trap. But like those rooms where you walk in and they're like, it fucks up your screen and says "stirp." And
then the radio enemies. Yeah.
They also have a name that I don't remember, but those are obviously differentiable for obvious reasons. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't think that super harmed it. I feel like they wanted there to be more of a differentiation because they wanted them to behave differently mechanically. But it is difficult to tell if that's actually true in my experience. I was smacked around by all of them, and I didn't really notice much of a difference.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the puzzles overall?
I like them overall. There were a few that were involved, like a lot of running around, that I think could have maybe been a little bit smoother. But like overall, I liked them a lot. Like I really liked the having to put together the Matryoshka doll.
Yeah.
To like put on the pedestal to take the balance, whatever those were called, plates.
Yeah, I think they were just called plates.
Yeah, so that stands out in my memory as a pretty cool puzzle. So yeah, like stuff like that. Like God, you had to play like the radio at the monitor to like find out like what symbol. Like I don't remember exactly how the puzzle worked. For those, there was like those symbol keypads.
Yeah,
you had to find out the combination. That was pretty cool.
Agreed.
So yeah, there were some area-wide puzzles that really worked for me, and some that felt a little tedious. But overall, thumbs up.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think I think a lot of the like actual, like you call them area-wide, that's a good name for them. Like the puzzles that gate your progression in terms of when you're going to be able to move on, like the overall thing, usually find 6 things and then do something with them.
Yeah. Put them in a door.
Put them in a door, put them on a table, whatever. Those are all, I think, all very good. I think that the ones that irk me, for my second and maybe final complaint, I think are the ones that were just like a single room in a puzzle that you needed no other information to complete.
Mm.
Like, I joke about newspaper puzzles, and my idea of what that means comes from the original Alone in the Dark, because they would be like, "You're in a haunted mansion. Now do a word find," and you're like, "Wait, what? Like, that's nothing. That doesn't induce any fear in me." And like the worst one for me in this game is just like the water level puzzle, like where you just have to move water between the tank, and it's like there's no time
pressure
whatsoever for you to do that, and there is in fact a note that tells you the exact steps that you need to take to do it. And it just feels like such a I don't know, like an abandoned puzzle
just
to me.
Move that to a different room, like a piece of paper, and like that solves it really. So you had to like take a picture of it, or like realize that like you had to connect two dots. It's still not even hard, but it's something.
Yeah,
if you do it that way.
Yeah, it makes you feel like there's a purpose to it.
Yeah, like I would say like those kinds of puzzles I think have that observatory in Eternal Darkness problem where you walk in and you're like, do I have everything I need to solve this puzzle, or do I need to leave and come back with more information?
Yeah.
Like I think having a mix of those things isn't always the best idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like that's like a really bad feeling when you're like you like approach like a wall of buttons and switches and you're like, do I spend time fucking with this, or do I leave and come back later? I always feel like that's like a bad headspace to put you in.
Yeah, and then sometimes you end up in that situation where like there's the fuse puzzle, which I did make. All of these fucking equations here are like what all of the individual buttons did, but like that one is like, oh, you can't do anything with this yet, it's powered off, and then you go find a fuse and bring it back, but what was on the screen presented to you is still all you have. Like, you just have to be. It's not like the thing made it easier. Mm-hmm. It just made it possible to do.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I don't know. I'm always like torn on those because I feel like a game like this does need some sort of like, it needs a break from the combat and the exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't all be bangers. Like,
yeah.
Every puzzle can't be great.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that there's some filler in here, but like, I don't know. I was unenthused by many of them. There's a fucking ice block puzzle in this game in the library with the book grabber machine.
Right.
So I don't know. It's not like I dislike it necessarily. It's just like it just felt like some filler that maybe didn't need to be there.
Yeah. You could cut a few of them out.
For sure.
And strengthen the ones that you have left, sort of thing.
You didn't need the ice block puzzle. It's not even the worst one, but you were in a library. You could have just put the book on a table. There's no reason for it to be in a book vending machine. Do you want to talk about the plot? Or what of the plot we were able to figure out?
Oh, God. Yeah, I feel like even from just some of the things you've said, I think you retained it better than me. Because it's a lot. It is. It's a lot of reading and a lot to like take in, and on top of that, it is kind of like a complex, time loopy, like hard to piece together kind of plot as well. So we can try and talk about it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the conversation I want to have, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily that I want to describe what actually happens in the game. It's just this game's method of storytelling is abstract. It's not straightforward at all. And it gives you a good, like, understanding of what's going on, sort of. It gives you a good understanding of how what's going on is supposed to make you feel.
Right.
But I have basically two comments at all that I really want to make about it. And the first one is that I was surprised at how emotionally affecting the game was able to be while not having I have a problem in my brain that when I read a name in a document in a video game, I just throw that out. I don't know. I never remember somebody's name unless it's like on screen. Like I remember Iso, the robot that you meet at the beginning of the game, and she like goes all the way through.
Isa?
Or Isa.
Yeah.
I don't know that well, apparently.
I think it was ISA.
Yeah, Isa.
Yeah.
I think it's like short for Izol, though.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Isa, I think, means moon.
Genius.
I know this because of Kingdom Hearts. Ding. Sayx's real name is Isa, and he's like the moon. He draws like power from it. But anyway,
the moon god.
He is the moon god.
But yeah, like I just don't remember names that well.
Yeah.
Unless they are like present in like the actual character that I'm dealing with, which is not the case. Elster.
Yeah. Like names and proper nouns are like hard to internalize when you just read them.
Yeah. It's like they say, like you have to put a face to the name.
Yeah. It's a lot easier.
We rarely get a face.
Yeah, like when you see it in like cutscenes and things.
Yeah, but despite that, when you go through, like you understand sort of inherently what's going on. In terms of like your character's motivation, you were looking for the person who was supposed to be in that pod and was not. And so you go through this facility, going through there until you fail. You're pushed down the elevator shaft and broken. And that's when you go to nowhere after that. And so there's this like moment of like where it becomes surreal, where before you could interpret it literally and now you cannot anymore.
Yeah, like once you find the pile of dead bodies of yourself,
yeah,
you know something's up.
Something's a little strange up in here. But yeah, going through all of that stuff, like I found was it was good. I enjoyed doing it, but I didn't feel like I was really connected. But I was wrong. Like when we actually get the flashback sequence or memory or whatever it is, where you're in the ship and the human, the Gestalt, I forget her name.
Yeah,
is still alive.
Something with an A.
Yeah, it sure is. It's not gonna help me.
I just want to say Abigail, but I don't know if that's correct.
I don't think so. I think it was more
Anne Marie.
It was Anne Marie. It was Anne Boleyn.
Anyway, continue.
I was like, oh, like you pieced together during that segment at least. I'm sure that there were clues before that I was just completely oblivious to, that she broke the rules and was fraternizing with her Replika.
Right. Nice.
And they like had a relationship and that she was dying. And so you have this like, I was shocked at that point that I cared enough about the main character that this was something that like really would be impactful to her. And then moving on from there, I now have to interpret the game in an entirely different way, which does make me feel like I should go back and replay the game, even though I know I'm not going to. Because I'm like, is this a metaphor for like cancer or like a disease, like something terminal? Because things are falling apart. You can only do it so many times. There's a point where you rip the arm off of one of your previous bodies and put it on your own arm. Yeah. And you're like, that's gotta mean something. And so they're like all of these little elements that I think fit together really well in the way that like an art film does, like a thing that makes you want to think more about it. And I really appreciated that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I mean, I think like all of like the best sci-fi or fantasy, like it has like that core, like that you were just describing, like of a relationship between two people, and like that can't be understated, the importance of that. Yeah, you need something to connect to. And I think that like that extra level, like it's playing with like really simple concepts of like a relationship between a human and a replica. Like you understand that there's like a difference in how they're each going to like what the relationship means to a human versus a robot. So like that's interesting to think about. And it makes it like kind of sad when like the robot, like when the replica is like going to these great lengths to like do something for the human. Like it just has like an interesting idea, like to like It's like just one of those like concepts that like it activates your imagination and gets you engaging with the story.
Right. And it has that sort of element of how close are replicas to human beings, like
calls that into
before you
question.
can like actually tell the difference. They're all of them. If I did my homework, all of the replicas are like their neural patterns are cloned from a particular human mind, like if each type of replica is based on the same individual person.
Right.
And of course, we're living in the very probable robot future where all robots are made to look like sexy anime ladies.
Of course, of course.
Because there's no way around that. That's just what is going to happen.
I mean, if we make replicas, people are going to fuck them.
And they are going to be designed to look like anime ladies.
Of course. Yes.
That's
the
just
most attractive thing.
the most universal art form is waifus. And so you do it like there's like a back and forth. One of my favorite notes to pick up in the whole game was just one that was like, hey, if you are starving to death, it's probably not a good idea to eat your replica. And it describes it just like it may look and feel like human flesh, but it's got like all this bad stuff in it that's going to be different.
Yeah.
And to me, like that's great world building because like it shows I mean, they didn't need to make like the I don't even remember the name of it, like the government.
Oh yeah.
That is having everybody do all these things in this solar system any more cartoonishly evil. Like they're hitting all of the tropes. Like it's to the point where that's not even like the point of the game.
It's like very communist imagery with like the red and black and
it was very like Big Brother, right?
Yeah,
like it's got that sort of vibe to it where it's like a dictatorship masquerading as a commune and all of the good stuff that comes with that. But it's like it's tired, right? Like we've all seen this before, and I think they use it here as a baseline, so and you don't really think about it.
Yeah, it's not like really commented on. It's just in the background.
Right. It's just like part of the world of the game. So that's not really necessary for that note, but it does establish like how human like the replicas are. It establishes sort of like how people might view them. Like, is this a person? Is this a thing that I would eat? Like, because that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Like, is it like an animal that I would hunt and eat for sustenance? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think all of that stuff is done extremely well. Like, I felt really surprisingly immersed in this like lower fidelity than PS1 world that I was existing in.
Yeah, agreed. It gets like those broad strokes, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
And the other thing I wanted to say related to that is just about the endings. I think the fact that this game has multiple endings, I've talked about this a billion fucking times. I don't like multiple endings very much. I feel like they get put into things that don't need them. The thing about this is, and I don't know if you looked this up,
I actually didn't watch the secret ending.
Okay. I didn't watch anything.
I was going to, but then I forgot.
Okay. The way that you get the different endings, because there are 3 regular endings and the secret ending.
Oh, okay.
And the way that you get the regular endings is by the way that you behave in the game. The one I got was called Memory, which I
think that's what I got too.
Yeah, to me it seems like the one that makes the most sense. But there's like one that you get if you're essentially like a pacifist, like you don't fight many things, and also you don't take much damage, you just run from stuff. And then there's one for like if you take a lot of damage and stay at low health for most of the game and like do a lot of fighting, kill a lot of things. And so it feels like 2 extremes and then like the middle ground that most people are going to get. But the endings fundamentally change the way that you read the like your character's motivation. And I don't know if she's presented that fluidly that you would be able to do that, because one of them makes a little bit of sense where like she goes in and doesn't recognize the gestalt, the human being that she is in love with, but kills her anyway. And then one where she doesn't, like, refuses to kill her and moves on. And I feel like it's weird that those are I feel like they read very differently, and maybe it's supposed to represent like 3 different versions of the character. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sad that one of the endings is that she just gets in the pod with her and then closes
and then sails on to a better tomorrow.
To cryo sleep.
Yeah, no, uncertain though. I don't dislike it. I think that the game is set up in a way that the endings can work. But I also don't. To me, I felt like having a more solid ending that was unchangeable it would have been maybe more to my preference, I guess.
Yeah, I think it kind of fits with the idea of like the replica doing like the whole mission over and over again to have different outcomes. So I guess it kind of fits thematically. But yeah, what do you think about the false ending? I wanted to bring that up because like whenever it happened, I was like, what are the odds that Chad doesn't realize there was a false ending
and just quits the game right
just
here?
quits the game.
I will say, this is definitely the most, tricky, believable secret ending or like false ending I've seen. Like, it doesn't like crash the game or do something like really ostentatious like that. It just rolls the entire credits and then goes back to the main menu, at which point you can just close the game and be like, I'm done. I actually really like that. The only reason that I was sure, and therefore I can't give a real answer as to whether or not I would have fallen for it, is that you said that you beat the game and it took you like 11 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like at 6 hours. And I was like, there's no way I'm that much better of a gamer than Andy is.
Like the big giveaway is that like on the menu her eye moves like wherever the cursor goes, and it's just like a dead eye, and then it doesn't say continue, it says begin.
Yes.
So there's a couple of clues, but like I think somebody could reasonably just completely overlook it.
I wouldn't. I would have overlooked it 100%. Like the fact that the main menu changes is just like a thing in games. Like when you complete a game and it's saying begin wouldn't have registered to me either, because it's like I finished the game, so you would begin a new game.
It does feel like it ends abruptly as well. I guess it'd be another clue that it's not actually over yet.
True. Yeah. But it does end after the climactic nowhere section. But it doesn't have a boss, so I guess, like, who knows?
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing I had that I wanted to talk about was just the length of the game. I don't know if it was like just like an expectation thing, but like I think having the false ending and it coming back on like a more weird narrative beat before you get back into the facility, and then having just like an entire another chunk, like another third of like a whole area to go through with a bunch of puzzles. Like, I felt like after the false ending, it shifted into like the more narrative thing. Like, I felt like it was just gonna wrap up. And then when there was like a whole nother like 3 hours of game to play, that I felt like that like put a bad taste in my mouth. I got over it. Like I got back into it as like I kept playing, but like it was like I was like, I really feel like this is too much.
Yeah, I would say that I had almost the exact same arc to that. I got there
because
and
like it's harder too. Like I remember like I died and I was like, God, I have to go back to the save room and like I have no ammo, and like why can't it just be like a narrative thing like it was?
I think I do agree. I think I had the same arc where I thought, okay, so we're gonna come back and just do like a quick thing and end the game or whatever. And I was a little bit disappointed that I was like thrown back into what is the hardest part of the game to actually like close it out, and it took me like another day. Like I went to bed and got up and finished it the following day. And I would say, here's my take. I think that the game could be a little bit tighter paced.
Yeah.
And there's not necessarily, I guess I should start with, I think it was worth it. I think that the expectation and the ending, like the last level of the game, are worth the potential loss in momentum that it causes. Because I do really like that last area a lot. And it provides a ton of good context, and it gives you an end to some character stories. But I think that like taking this game from great to like nearly perfect, if you could just shave off little imperceptible roadblocks to make it go faster and be a little bit smoother, I think that it would end up working out really well.
You could probably cut like an hour of content out of the game.
Yeah. And put like the flashlight on your body, and so you don't have that saves at least a few minutes of running back to the nightmare. I mean the box. So there's that. Yeah. Anything else?
I don't really think so. I don't know. There's a final boss.
There's a final boss. There are 3 bosses
spears
in this
her
game.
head.
Man, it took me a few spears to realize that they were going straight through her skull. And once I realized that was what was happening, I was like, that's pretty fucking metal. Like that. Yeah, that's there isn't much to say. I ran out of ammo like real bad in the final boss. But they let you kill it anyway. Like if you just run around for a while.
Oh, that's weird.
It'll just fall over eventually, and then you can spear it.
Yeah.
I took in, because I'm a genius, I took in the rifle and the revolver to the fight. And you get ammo for the revolver, but you do not get ammo for the rifle. And I used up all of my rifle ammo.
Yeah, I just took the regular pistol and the submachine gun.
Submachine gun seems like it would have been a good choice.
Yeah, it does have ammo drops for it.
Yeah.
So.
I was unfortunate enough to not have that option.
Yeah. And
so.
I actually didn't run out of ammo, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I had like grand total like 24 shots in the final boss. But I was able to just run away and evade with my trusty auto injectors equipped.
Of course.
To kill them. I did find a lot of my time in the game, just to sort of like go back to the very beginning of the podcast for no good reason, where I wouldn't even bring ammo most of the time. And I think that's kind of what caught up to me at the final boss, is that I was like, I just won't, whatever. I gotta save the inventory space. And so the final boss, I was like, okay, I got all the ammo for this, but like you don't really ever get that much ammo for. I think you can carry 12 shots for the revolver at once. It's not very much. Do we have Falk thoughts?
My Falk thoughts are this game lived up to like what I wanted it to be. This is another one of those games that someone recommended online. It seemed cool and it didn't disappoint. Yeah, like a cool throwback mashup, which executed very well to like where it feels like its own thing. And yeah, like when I first started playing it, like the first half of the game, I was like, I don't know if I'd say it was blown away or anything, but like I was really pleased with it. I was like, I thought it was like just the right level of difficulty, just the right like difficulty curve, like smooth progression, and it was like really into it. I feel like it went on a little long for my tastes. There were some parts where I felt like, and it comes with the territory, but like a lot of backtracking, running around hallways and all that. But overall, I think it's like really well executed, and there's really not much to complain about. Like it's like a very well thought out, implemented, and executed indie survival horror game. So I really enjoyed my time with it.
Yeah. Agreed, except for all the things that you said that you didn't like. No, I do really love this game, and I do want to thank all the people who did suggest this. Like, this is a game that I think you originally told me about because you heard it from some guy.
Yeah. This YouTuber that I like, called Frustrated Jacob, recommended both Perfect Tides and this.
Oh, wow.
And they both turned out to be good, so thanks, Jacob.
Thanks, Jacob. Guy we do not know.
But yeah, other people suggested it in the Discord. I think.
We had a suggestion in the Discord, a suggestion from just one of our friends, and I know that I am more of a I'm more known for being like into horror aesthetics and shit. And so I had like 2 or 3 other people tell me that it, like, people who hadn't played the game before were just like, it seems like you would like this. And I was like, yeah, I'm playing it in October. Fucking give me a minute. And I'm glad I did. I think that this game is, and I was going to play this when we got it recommended originally, but so it's not a big surprise that I played it, but I'm very happy with it. I think that this game hits the feeling of like what the original survival horror style games were going for more than anything I've played for a long time. Like, yeah, I said a decade, and you called out Silent Hill 2. That's a good call out, because I did play that for the first time this decade. But it was like, that is an older game. So, like, the Silent Hill franchise, the Resident Evil franchise, the ones that sort of started this whole genre, like, this game feels like it's really giving them their due in the modern era. And it does it with a sort of a stylish flair of anime robots that I gotta say I liked more than I would have expected to.
It doesn't really look like anime in game.
Right, yeah, it's just in the cutscenes. But they look really good. It's very evocative. It's very like complex. There's a lot to it to sort of unpack if you wanted to do that, and I kind of do. So all in all, yeah, this is a great game. I'm glad that we started October with this, because it kicks a lot of ass and gets me excited to play more horror games. So yeah, loved it. High 9
to the nines.
Dressed to the nines in my blue combat regalia. That's sort of how this game ends. Anyway, thank you for listening to No Clip Pocket this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we had a slight change of plans and are going to go with a suggestion that was given to us very recently and also a year ago, and we ignored it. But we know the guy, so I'm hoping he can live with that one. We're going to be talking about Midnight Manor. Which is an indie game from Itch, though I think I have it on Steam, so it's available on multiple platforms. But I know jack shit about it.
Same.
Yeah. So we'll try that out on Pocket next time. Fuck yeah. Halloween. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at noclippodcast.com. or on splattershot.pro. There you can find links to our Twitter account, our email address, our YouTube channel, and you can listen to any of the old episodes, and boy golly, have we got a lot of them for you today. I have a whole horror playlist, so if that's all you're looking for, that's an option. We just did Resident Evil 4 Remake and 8 this year.
The Evil Within 2.
The Evil Within 2 is a less classic survival horror game, but still really interesting, and I like that episode a lot. Fucking Gemini Rue, I feel like has a similar sort of like visual style and is also like a cyberpunky dystopian future thing, but it's an adventure game.
Right. A point-and-click adventure game.
A point-and-click, which notably you do not do that in this game.
Right. Yeah, but we do have no shortage of horror.
Yeah.
So
hit those up. And incinerate that like button.
Try not to spear anyone through the head in the comment section.
And tune your radio and find the broadcast tower that's powered to transmit the bell sound.
Changing your idea of what a robot can do is so bad that it might just be funny to use.
I mean, I don't think it's like it's
so like not a slogan.
It's not a slogan. It's also kind of on the nose.
Yes.
Those are the strikes against it, and they're both pretty big strikes.
2 strikes, you're out.
2 strikes, you're out. That's the No Clip way.